So, welcome everyone, and thank you for coming out at a very busy time of year. I would also like to welcome Jeannette Ginslov and say that I'm pleased to be introducing a friend and a collaborator to give us a talk. Some background on Jeannette. Her roots are in performance art, protest theatre, and contemporary dance theatre within the context of an apartheid South Africa, as a performer, choreographer, and artistic director. The classical and contemporary dance training in South Africa, New York, and France afford her the tools to practice and research sites of resistance through the body and through movement. In 1998, she studied a Master of Arts in Choreography based on the body at the Dance Factory as sites of resistance. The body and the Dance Factory as sites of resistance, exploring postmodernist feminist dance practices and choreographic strategies. She left South Africa in 2008 in order to study for a master's in media arts and imaging, screen dance, at Dundee University in Scotland. In 2009, she started exploring other sites and modes of production with the use of online platforms and became an associate producer of Techne, which is quite a large dance and technology social networking site. She's a moderator for content on Techne that uses the most advanced social software platforms and internet-rich multimedia applications. She's also the creator of MoveStream, that provides an interdisciplinary platform investigating the crossover between the boundaries usually found in media, dance, cinema, video, and the internet. MoveStream provides a fresh and adaptive approach for the public to engage with culture, choreography, and performance. As a networked phenomenon, it encourages a much-needed flow and exchange with screen dance discourses. So I'm very pleased to introduce Jeannette and to hear her take on the Effexity research, which is one of the research platforms and research programs happening here at Medea that is interdisciplinary and involves developing technologies as well as artistic and design components. So now I shall pass you over to Jeannette.
Great.
Switch myself off.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Susan. And thank you very much for all being here today. I know that you're incredibly busy, as we all are. And I also want to thank Medea for the platform today. It's really great to have the space to share with you all the work that we've been doing on Effexity so far. Yeah, so as what Susan said just now, the Effexity project is a screen dance and mobile network devices collaborative project. And it's been, well, we started the project in 2011, October, and it's envisaged that this project will be a 2-year collaborative project. And it both, I think, reflects and attracts in its processes and outcomes interhuman, intersubjective, and relational encounters. From concept to delivery, this project is concerned with the necessary techne to deliver artistic encounters that reflect the performative and the social, the affective and the technical, the internet and the body. These temporal encounters are also reflected in the teamwork and the subsequent scaffolding that has arisen from the many hands and minds that are developing the techne necessary for the Effexity project. And it is through this scaffolding of techne that I'd like to show you some examples of the stages of development that Effexity has undergone, within which many collaborators have and will still negotiate. There we go. I would like to continue using the notion of the scaffolding because I really think it's a great illusion to use in terms of this intertwining and mixture of thought processes and technical development and artistic vision as well. Scaffolding is in a quote that I found online. Scaffolding is widely used during construction and renovations activities. In its simplest form, a scaffold is any temporary elevated or suspended work surface used to support workers and or materials. The allusion to scaffolding in Effexity is a visual, social, visceral and mental structure that best describes the temporal relations of people and techne. that work together in making affixity transpire. This type of scaffold exemplifies in its structure and artistic manifestations what philosopher and psychotherapist Felix Guattari calls an infrastructure, a work in progress, or an operator of temporal junctions and attractors. And I think it's vital to always constantly thinking about the notion of attraction in these different junctures, because it's only through that really strong force and passion and drive that I find that we can continue working in this project, because I promise you it has a life for a few weeks, and then the energy dies down a bit, and then it comes back again. It's a 2-year project that's constantly evolving, and because of our busy lifestyles, it's a pretty and fairly it has a nomadic presence as well. But I think it's very important that we have this mental infrastructure constantly in place, because we know that ultimately we have a deadline, which we thought would be November this year. However, that's now shifted on. However, this notion of the scaffolding, I think it's vital that we actually hold on to it. And this is another image that I snatched from dancetech.net, just to give you an idea of, an allusion to mental and thought process and infrastructure, and also looking at it in terms of a febrile scaffolding, because I also think that the scaffolding for me has a direct relation to the field of dance, the most temporal of the arts. This is both a frustration and yet it's an inspiration. By using a scaffolding of Collaborators, the Techne of screen dance, and the augmented reality browser Argon, we'll have the ability to capture and distribute this frustrating dialectic. However, eventually, this scaffolding will be extended via the internet, where we will share effective choreographies of dancing bodies within cityscapes with others all over the globe. So to start off with, I'd like to mention all the collaborators on this dynamic research scaffolding, as it is only through the agencies of all these people that this project takes flight in a progressive febrile poiesis. Well, first of all, we have Susan Kozel, who's our artistic director and main fundraiser. And then there's Jay Bolter, and I'm sure maybe you know of him. Professor of Media and Technology in the Mixed Environments Lab at Georgia Tech. And he's the developer of the web server Argon that houses Affixity and leads the programming and software development. Maria Engberg, who's a lecturer from the Bleckinger Institute of Technology, and she's also assisting with developing the programming for the project, and she works alongside Georgia Tech as well. There are students assisting in the software development as well. Timo Engelhardt, he's a master's student here in the computer science department. Nachikitas Ramanujam and Sanika Makashi, who are students of Georgia Tech, who also help in the development of the programming. There's been 2 dance artists so far who are independent dance artists working and residing in Copenhagen, Vubka Koindesma and Nia Lulchiva. And then there's Carolina, who's been helping us coordinate, and Richard Topcott has also helped us put our presence up online throughout the Medea website, and also helping to get the word out. And then, of course, there's myself, and I've been working within the screen dance development and working within research of affect and how this can assist us in the project. And then finally, we will have a global presence, and we will then have worldwide collaborators. So eventually the work becomes far more social than just resting within Malmö, where we're actually going to be launching the project. So we'll eventually have contributors and collaborators worldwide. So I started off with this research, and I started off with Susan as well, and we sat there and thought, well, we need a good title, because we wanted something that would reflect both the notions of affect and affixity, something that is nomadic. And Susan also thought of the words, something about affect happening in cities mixed with affixity. So we came up with the notion of affixity, with a big capital X. And it's really suitable for the notion, because we really think that cities produce affect via the people residing there and moving in public spaces. And it's it's very often that one negotiates pathways in a city, and really the way that we move within urban environments are definitely incredibly controlled. And so I think that the project, what it really does is that it moves into the interstices between the presence of you being in the city or the person being in the city, and then what else is around and that negotiated space, and drawing in maybe personal memory or affect. And that is the big issue of our research. And this will probably give us our smaller narratives that we want to capture through devices like this. So it's about people moving in public spaces that produce smaller narratives, chance negotiations and affordances within cityscapes. And these could provide us the multitude of micro-narratives which we wish to amplify and share. It still maybe doesn't even give you an idea of exactly what the project actually entails. So I'm going to sort of start a bit backwards and show you a video of the Effexity project. And it's a proposal video that we started out with last year. And basically, I'll just lead it. An interdisciplinary choreographic exploration. Okay, I'll let the voiceover go. Using augmented reality on mobile devices. A pilot choreography embedded in urban spaces, with locative choreographies embedded in the city of Malmö, Sweden. Using Argon, a free open source augmented reality browser with geospatial tagging, allowing accessibility to the embedded choreographies via iPhones and iPads. So this is just to give you an indication of what actually should transpire in the end, is that we have a meeting place or a rendezvous for an audience, and they arrive with their mobile devices, such as an iPad or an iPhone, and then geotagged and with markers, dance videos that would have been shot in these locations are then read through the Argon web browser and then downloaded onto the phone, and then it's viewed live as a layer over that location. I will give you a demonstration at the end. We've finally got the iPhone to work. Unfortunately, it hasn't worked very successfully for us on the iPad, but this is possibly what you would get at the end of the day, a video as an overlay on the environment that you're visiting. So there again, it's about the audience. For me, it's about the audience entering the scaffold of this Techne and the artistic and the technical all coming together, and that then can be broken down and then moved to another place. So we're really dealing with really high-end, I think, high-end location markers or fiduciary markers or QR codes in order to access these videos that are actually, for me, primarily dealing with the body in relation to a cityscape. And that's where, for me, the humanity and the human element becomes really vital in terms of guiding how to find affect, and guides me as a screen dance maker in order to capture that. Because we mustn't forget, when we've got all these technical devices, which are just plastic and metal and wire, how do you put our viscerality, how do we put our own human entity within these capturing devices and then throw them up so that they're accessible for a viewer to watch, and then be in the same turn affected by that. And I think that for me is my job and has been my task all the time as technical developer and and with the use of my devices, to constantly think of as a screen dance maker, to amplify that effect. So I think for me, the project is a drawing together of Guattari's three ecologies: the environmental, the social, and the mental. But as I've just said now, I'd like to add a fourth element, and that's the corporeal, which is intrinsic to the notion of affect. So I would like to add that this is an interrelational experiment using an internet of bodies and things. So my process has really been trying to identify what is affect. What is this notion of affect? And how could I identify this with a dance happening in a certain location, a choreography and its digital materialization, its entanglement in media, not only in the timeline, but also embedded in the Argon web browser as a video overlay in the city of Malmö. Susanna Parsonen in Carnal Resonances has very clearly described affect, haptic, and resonances in relation to her studies of online pornography. These are quite broad and connected with her research, but I found them fairly useful in mine. So affect, well, according to the research, is about carnal responses, immediate and direct bodily sensations, reactions, and resonances by viewers. Affects are forces that cut across and connect different bodies. They produce motion in the viewer. They might be ambiguous, experiential, direct, may fascinate, they may be ineffable, and they may even be ambiguous. In online porn videos, they are associated with authentic reactions usually made in amateur video production. So, affect has to do with gut responses, intensities. They may disgust us, may be disturbing, unpleasant, revolting, dissonant. They could be shocking or amusing. But there are always ones that we remember. They attract attention and encourage further visitation. So the other notion that I had to visit was the notion of something being haptic. And haptic is about tactility. It's about texture, proximity, contact, touch. And they felt viscerally, associated with motion and action, an extreme close-up that loses all identification of place or character and or disturbs the mastery of the reading of the image. Media theoretician Laurie Marks claims that here the viewer engages with the image rather than the narrative or character. It captures life forces and includes a politics of representation. The images are indirect and give rise to resonances and intimacy, and their ways of looking and experiencing through the caressing gaze rather than a voyeuristic control or mastery. Gilles Deleuze qualifies these as optical images that are uncliched, so that the viewer must bring his or her own resources of memory and imagination to complete them. These also may be associated with the notion of in-betweenness or stretchiness, the spaces between, I like to call it, between the binaries, as progressive intensities and difference. Haptic images offer a pure surface through which a viewer to view through extreme close-up. So obviously, given these two notions of affect and the haptic, one starts to then think, how then do I capture the body? What type of shots do I create? How do I edit this together? So I'd like to show you a video that Wubke Koendesma, the dancer and choreographer in Copenhagen that I collaborated with in the Dansens Hus. We worked on a video that she'd been an idea for a stage work that she'd been working on, and very interestingly called Familiar Stranger. So she also had the notion of something being very familiar but trying to make it strange, trying to make it haptic. And we made this video together. I'm going to go a little bit forward. I'll let it start. It is 5 minutes long. So here through the shoot, I really we had a very blackened room, and basically she had two lights tied to her, just under her knees, that were lighting her feet, But because of the strange distance that I had, this loses all sense of identification of any notion of feet or lights, but just becomes these two bouncing balls. And I also, I didn't play with the with anything else in the edit except for slowing it down. So I was trying to go for the experiential of just two balls and lights bouncing, really trying to make something really strange. I then pulled in a bit closer during the shoot, and here we can start to see the 2 feet. Still not really identifying exactly what it is. And they became sort of X-ray-like, I think. And I think also because of the reflection on the floor, we're still not really sure what it is. And slowly the feet became clearer. And there's no other special effect. It's really just those 2 lights and the feet. Okay. Oh, now I've gone out of my hole. Stay. Right. Next, I then decided we had gotten a GoPro video camera, and I thought, okay, well, what about now if I try to work with the subjective point of view, of the subjective camera? So I shot for a whole day out at the beachfront, and I'm still trying to think about this kind of viewing or this kind of moving with a camera. I tied it onto different parts of my body. I'm not overly overjoyed with what I shot. It just leaves me feeling a bit disoriented. I don't know whether it's the way to go yet. I still have to do a lot more research. I'll show you the other one. It just provided us with a sort of a very topsy-turvy world. Here I was trying to explore rolling on the floor, and I had a score of moving away from the earth and moving towards the earth. So it's just incredibly destabilizing. But as you can see, you're losing all sense of objectifying the environment or the character, and you're really just concentrating on the movement of the viewer. And I'm sure inside of you can feel something churning. I think viscerally you start to feel something because it's very destabilizing. And in fact, it just gets a bit annoying because it makes you feel a bit dizzy. But that was precisely the point. Okay. Next, I moved on to researching what are resonances. And resonances are something that are liminal, in that sort of grey zone. They're sensorial and affective. And they have to do more with empathic responses, sympathetic vibrations, shimmers, or a vibe. So here's, it's a still from a video. And another still from a video made with Vubka in Copenhagen. Here, interestingly, what I did was that I took a very big close-up of the passageway, and Vubka performed in the passageway. And this was really just to try and illustrate the notion of resonances and what does the body do within a cityscape, and what resonated for Vubka. What could she express in this space? Because a lot of the time, you get a lot of dance artists to go into city spaces, and they do spectacular dance pieces, and how do you get the dancer to relate to the space? What is that ephemeral space? What is that? What is the resonance of that space? How do you read the space? How do you get? We talked a lot about how do we get in between the bricks, the mortar. What history is sitting in this space? What are the sounds? What's the temperature? What's the color? Everything else other than what steps can you make here? So that was not the journey to find these resonances, and one can't really put one's finger on it. So it was a bit frustrating for Wubke, because she'd say yes, but I'm in the space, and you know, a lot of the time she wanted to do architectural movements because it's got a wonderful curve and an arch, and there's people rushing on the front side, you'll see just now, and it's quiet in the middle, and yet there was also people going in and out of the passageway. So does she copy people's movements? And so we had a lot of discourse about what exactly, how do you capture affect or these feelings of resonance. And then again, when you're sitting in the edit and you're sitting in with the timeline, I thought, well, what else could I do in order to make us feel as if we were watching something as an overlay? So that was also partly why this video came about. So as you can see here, these are moments that have a particular rhythm and a pace and a tempo, and they're not complicated by narrative, representation, psychology, or character. And that I had to maintain also in the edit as well. So they become kind of this liminal there's a strangeness about them within this environment. That's what we picked up there. And then the notion of affixity. And fixity is about the notion of temporality, not fixed, not permanent. It engages movement as encounter, motion as a language, and temporality as home. In artistic practices, it engages, exposes, and invites a temporal aesthetic, dialogic encounters within a scaffolding of ideas, techniques, technical skills, and outcomes. So because of this notion of affixity, I then shot and made another video. And here I overlaid several videos, and we put Wubke in a lift, and we went up and down in the lift. So everything is sort of coagulating. There's no sense of center. There's no sense of stillness at all. But this is really through the job as a screen dance maker. I think on the timeline one can quite easily, you know, come to something like this. But I think the problem lies in how will you evoke this when you eventually come to, at the end of the day, when you've got your iPhone and your iPad and you come to your location. That's the big thing, you know. This has got a lot of technical sort of overlays and a lot of technical skill. And that's what brings me to the next topic, and that is this issue of Techne. And this is where knowledge and craft come together. Collaborators, relations between an artist and his practice, his collaborators, his epistemologies, his viewers, and interhuman subjectivity collaborating on creating a temporal relational formation. I relate this to my experience of screen dance that involved dance, directing, choreography, shooting, and editing. So that's my technique. So a big issue now for my technique is not only the creating as a screen dancer, but also the choreography. What is it that the dancer should be doing within this? How do we conjure up the dance? How do we make the scores? How do we make the choreography? How do we make the steps? And this is precisely what we did. So with Nia, Susan and I, the one day we were in the green screen shoot, and we were using practically scores rather than setting steps in order to find the movement appropriate for this project. And scores are energy forms, according to Joe Marin, who's a choreographer. They're energy forms with multifarious possibilities. They are non-linear, a means to integrate experience, a reference that is a non-representational carrier of an idea and its realization. They are ideas for movement and call for the mover to express without producing a clearly expressed, represented, or signified gesture. So again, we're going into this liminal space. And it's something you can't really put your hands on. And that's where they're an interface between ideas and movement. They are complete and yet they're incomplete. They flicker and they conjure. They are poetic, liminal. They compose rather than set movement into action. The moving body is invited to express and be understood as something outside a linguistic system, outside of concrete readability. So as a choreographer, one then calls for states or sensations or kinesthetic experiences, memories, speeds, intensities, nuances, fluxes, synthesis, and interpretations. And the result of this is affect and haptic imagery, hopefully. We're still under the process of figuring this out. So one has these scores, and one tells that one works together with the dancer. And here, Nia was very good at trying to capture the sense of being within a space, trying to be present, trying to find out what these nuances were in this place. Within a building. So I said to her, imagine yourself, you're in a building, and you're going to try and find the nuances within the space. And it seems to me like she's trying to capture something. And these are all improvisations. So as a screen dance maker, I have to then be very much alive to the moment and negotiate her performance with the camera lens. And that's where I'd like to talk about my strategy as a screen dance maker. And for the last few years, I've been very concerned with Douglas Rosenberg's notion of a carnivorous camera. And he actually came up with this term in order to describe, according to him in the 1980s, he described the carnivorous camera, or the camera, as capturing the and sexualizing the dancing body. But in order for it to sort of really shine in mainstream screen dance production. But I'd like to redeploy the carnivorous camera and rather use it and invite moments of affect and resonance, and rather use it as a means of nudging and sniffing out and teasing out the life forces of the moving body just in front of its eye. And I think that for me, it really is trying to engage. I really see this as an extension of my eye. And I really see it as a means of engaging with movement rather than with character and with narrative and with the logos. So it's to disrupt any sort of linguistic model that we know of, and so that to really try and find what Brian Masumi claims to be a semiotics willing to engage with continuity. And basically, Merleau-Ponty also states that this is actually how we anchor our bodies in the world, and that is through our spaces of movement in order to express ourselves. And so because of these notions, I've always got them in my head. Whenever I shoot, I try not to use a tripod too often, and I try to use a close-up. And basically, I really think of shooting with my center, and my center connecting with the dancer's center, or connecting to the hotspot of the movement. And that's where I usually find the most visceral, the most juicy parts of the movement. So one has to really become the tripod or the bipod, and think of the camera lens as extending as an extension from my eye, and I try to connect it holding with two hands, and I try to connect it through my center of gravity to my feet, so that when I'm moving, I'm literally moving together with the dancer. So I have to be constantly awake and very much alive in the moment. So it becomes quite a ritualized space, and the space between the camera and the so-called sort of hotspot is where the aliveness of this transaction actually takes place, and this is where the exciting moment takes place. And the performance takes place. And the dancer also has to learn that this becomes this hallowed ground, this sacred space, and performs for that little space here, because now the stage has changed, right? It's no longer the huge big platform in the arena with the audience sitting miles and miles over there, but rather it's just here. So the dancer really has to perform in such a way that it amplifies through to me, through my gaze, and then finally out to the timeline. And it's that sort of they're very small bursts and moments of delicious compatibility, or where one identifies those shimmers or those resonances. In fact, you're resonating together. And so it's not just about sort of putting something on a tripod, lining up the shot, and then calling action. And then, something happens, but that is objectified and at a distance. This is rather much more inside the movement, and hopefully, this is a way to make the video dance. Katrina McPherson is a screen dance maker, works in Scotland, and taught me about video dance. Making the video dance, making it boil, making it visceral, making the screen visceral, rather than just a cold, distant object that we view. So from this sort of very hotspot and somatic experience, because I must say it is like a zone. You go into a zone when you're in it, because you're trying not to go, who's the character, where's the location, etc., but one is within this very somatic area. You're trying to capture this, and when you've got it in the camera, you then got to put it on your timeline and make sure you're editing it according to a certain rhythm and a pace that is very, very appropriate for that moment. And hopefully these, so you're going through this process of putting the dancer, this live, fleshy being in this environment, trying to figure out what are the resonances in this environment, amplifying it through capturing it through this device, putting it on the timeline, and then editing it, and then putting it out there on a geotagged video within the space again, so that when the viewer goes back at that dedicated hour and views the video, perhaps something else will resonate within the viewer, so that there's this complete interrelational discourse that is happening, and that the viewer will then have an empathic response to the video. So, yeah, it's really a meeting place between the carnal and the digital. And here is Susan in a video at the lighthouse. Yeah, they're leave one with a strange sense. They're engaging, and yet they're pulling in a they pull one in and out of in a strange way. I still don't know if they're there yet. I'm not actually sure. So for me, affexity is about being human today. It expresses the temporal nature of the subject and collaborations and people moving within these cityscapes, and it invites effective participatory expressions via the internet, expressions that are about everyday micro-utopias that replace passive representative images. Affexity utilizes temporary nomadic scaffoldings and rendezvous rather than utopic objects and fourth wall dementia. It encourages meetings, relations, and the materialization of encounters. It reflects our present-day concerns of interhuman relations via the models of sociability and mobility within cities and the internet. We engage and rather passively view a utopic material object. We partake rather than consume. We have become, as Guattari observes, operators of junctions and subjectivity. So in its production and reception, it is dialogic, interhuman, and temporal. And here is a video, again, this is a want to be, how one would possibly be able to see a one of these videos as an overlay. So you'd imagine yourself with an iPhone. And this would have been geotagged within this space on the bridge. And then the final one. Here, as you can see, this was the video that I showed you earlier on with the green screen. So you go off the marker and go back onto the marker, and she dances again. And however, within this Argon browser, the video is changed into PNGs. It's just slides, stills. They're not actually dot mobs. These are all dot mobs. So that's another aspect of the Techne that we're busy working on. And I wanted to give you a live demonstration of the iPad that unfortunately is not working. I do have an iPhone where I've downloaded something for you, and you could possibly have a look at that. And there's, if you look at our blog site there, I've just put it here for you so that you can always get an update. And I just want to actually pass this around. Oh dear. It's not gone all dark. Reset. Yeah, I mean, there's several things one could do. One could work with these QR codes and download the KML file onto your mobile device, and then watch the video that's been uploaded into the environment, or else you could directly download a KML link onto the web browser, and then
First you need Argon, which is freely available from the App Store. What did you want to show?
I had it actually all downloaded.
Because I had to do a hard reboot. Things might have been lost.
Oh no.
Do you want to get at it from the
Go
URL?
go to the
QR code.
yeah.
From the URL?
Mm.
Is it in the
It's on there.
notes here yet? Which one?
I tried that one earlier on and it worked. Okay, it's busy downloading something now. Okay, something's happening. Yay! So basically, I mean, I think if you... Oh, the battery's just about to go as well. Gosh. Oops, there's the dancer. I don't know if you want to pass it round or try and stand with it or... Basically, there's a panorama that's been shot and a panoramic view of a location. So there's this 360-degree stills that have been stitched together to create a 360-degree environment. And then within that 360-degree environment, called the panoramic view, there is a video that is put there, and that's a little dancer. And yeah, it's still busy downloading at the moment if you have a look. Don't know if you can see her.
This was done by Marie.
Yeah. But ultimately what we want to do is that when the viewer comes to the location, you see through the camera, you'll see the location that you're in, and then you see the dancer on top of it. This one's got the panoramic view that's already been made. And hopefully what we also envisage is that the viewer will also, so you're not just standing passively, you're not standing passively observing something, but perhaps, you have to really work within the environment to see it. So that in that way it's encouraging people to really participate with it rather than just to sort of stand back arbitrarily and watch something from a distance. And then, of course, finally, it's to open it up for it to become a social choreography, so that we'll open it to other centres of where people are interested to, well, maybe other organisations. I'm not actually sure how we're going to go about it, but to open it up and make it a social choreographic project, so that other people can also upload their videos and their choreographies and their affective choreographies onto the web browser, and then share that around the world. So it really becomes something that is interhuman and rather still temporal and dialogic and sociable. Okay, I think that was good. I haven't spent hours talking. I really would just like to again thank Medea for the support, and of course the Danish Arts Foundation, which has given me some funding to be able to stand here and talk to you and show you and share with you. And yeah, that's it from me, I think. Yeah.
Thank you. Is this working? Yes, it is. We certainly have time for some questions, which we can open up. It's wonderful to hear a project that you're working on presented from one of the collaborators' viewpoints, because you realize how you develop your own collaborative vision and vocabulary, but equally, because we each anyone in a collaborative team comes from their own background, there's going to be the personal passions or skills or interests that come through, which is why it keeps it very interesting and textured from the different disciplines. Would anyone like to question or comment anything, even if it feels like a really basic question, because we're working with a technology that's in the process of being developed, so there are a lot of things that are still being created, and a lot of decisions that are even still being made, not just artistically, but from an engineering perspective. Yeah. I'm going to have to give you the microphone for the interests of archiving and posterity.
No problem. Really cool app and lecture. The first, in the beginning you said that there's an app for iPhone and an app for iPad. So that's a dedicated app for iPad. It's not the same app.
It's the same app.
It's the same app.
Yeah. It's Argon, A-R-G-O-N.
So what's your thought about Android systems?
Oh, don't ask me that. I
No?
don't know. You can answer.
soon, according to Jay Bolter.
Soon. All right.
Okay.
Well, that's because I know that there are a lot of people that are like, let's call it fanboys of Apple products, but Android, it's a really growing system. So it would be great if Android users could have the possibility to use this app also.
Yeah.
Right, but soon. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, through all my research of looking at augmented reality platforms and apps, you know, I saw some really horrendous sort of dancing figures, and it's to really try and make this and use it artistically, because it is obviously used for commercial purposes, and so it's to challenge that and to buck that and to try and find ways of allowing for us our affective presence using these apps. So it'll be very interesting to see how we can get our video material in there. I don't know whether we'll ever be able to make purely the .mov scenario. Apparently that's impossible. So I think there'll be very short spurts of little dance sequences that will occur on the Argon browser. Yeah. Yeah, when will we launch it? Okay, we were thinking of November, this year, November, but because of all the ups and downs of funding and trying to find the technical know-how and all, you know, there's bugs that happen every now and again, and you know, we've got to go back and do our homework and think about, yeah, it's like that. So we'll probably have to put it forward, and then maybe next year.
I would think possibly next summer. What's also happening too with Argon is, as it's developed, this is now the first and only augmented reality platform that takes video. They were working towards still images and digital animated content and text, but it was also our collaborative influence that made the engineers see that video could be valuable because it has that more analog quality. But importing video has its own challenges too in terms of how it's handled, which is why now it's handled as a whole series of still images stuck together, which makes us think of the 90s, you know, when you did have to do the laborious, you know, input of images into systems. So we're back at that stage again with this, which is exciting, but also occasionally you think, really? We can't do this, but we're progressing. Also, this whole question of whether we need to use the green screen. Can you say a little bit more about the? Yeah, I mean, we
didn't
explain why.
I think why we went through the green screen route was that we wanted the notion of an overlay. We wanted the video overlay over the environment, so that if you've got, I'll use the iPad. If you've got your iPad and you come to the dedicated space where we've got the marker, the video would then cover the whole entire screen, and it would be a dancing figure with the background taken out. But the background would be seen through the camera of the iPad. So if you went to the Malmö lighthouse, you'd see the lighthouse and the dancing figure. So that was the reason for having and making the green screen. And using chroma key and taking out the. So it was for overlaying. But we're still sitting with the problem of not being able to put a video up. So that's the problem there. But Jay was very excited because he said, "You're the it's groundbreaking." He said, "You're the first guys wanting to do this." So we said, "Yes, cool."
But green screening also brings us out of the city for movement improvisation and into a really sterile studio. Because what we're interested in is movement that might happen. It might happen right there at the lighthouse. We capture it and then put it into augmented reality. So if we have to take the movement process into a green screen, which is, there aren't many of them around, we even here had to fuss a lot with, we don't have the painted infinity curve on our wall here, so we had to work with the fabric. It actually removes the movement from the city. So it's not so ideal. Nia was great because we were able to bring the city back into her imagination while she was improvising, and she was good enough to be able to do that. But really, we'd like to be able to shoot in the city and then take that imagery and then put it into Argon so that it could be tagged at that same spot in the city. It's trying to get it out there where there's a lot going on in terms of bodies and image.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
It was fun to hear that you're being forced to, due to technical limitations, to have to go to a PNG format, which of course takes, in the media history, takes you back to people like Murray, who were making images of the body through quick successions of fast photography, and how all these kind of early proto cinematic stuff, where and having to struggle with it, but seeing what you come up with will be exciting, and how you overcome the limitation, or how you turn the limitation on its head or something. But
I think for us as well, I think it has to do with efficacy of the application at the end of the day, when one needs to share it, and then how does somebody standing in Melbourne, how easy can it be? And it needs to be easy for it to be open and sociable the way we would like it to be, so that it's not just becoming this high art end product, but it actually just becomes very easy and easily shared and easily uploaded. So we'll see where it all goes. I mean, yeah. Because I think the less process that we have, the more, like I mentioned, what Susanna Personen said was that these online porn videos, the ones that really work well, are the ones with less interference of technology, the ones that are really sort of homemade. Those are the ones that really grab people, and so you have to keep that in your head all the time. So the more processes you have, the less effective and the less empathic responses you have from your audience. So it's really this gameplay between the technology and the artistic, and what it is that you want to eventually get out of that encounter when you're eventually standing with your mobile device, if it's at all going to do that. I don't really know. Yeah. It's interesting.
Thank you very much. I liked your videos very much, and this idea of delocalization and relocalization that you put out from a context and re-put in another location. And yes, I thought it was quite amazing, actually. And I would like to ask you a question. How do you do with, when you are speaking about affect and how the response of the audience, how do you proceed when you want to measure that, and when you say that they reacted more to this kind of video, or to how do you?
Yeah, I mean, within FXity, as yet, it still hasn't been received by any audience yet. So we don't really know. So, but within my own work, I get feedback from people saying, yes, this is highly effective. And a lot of my work, that's what I'm really aiming at, is to always amplify that within my work. And it's always got to do with the kinesthetic and the emotional. And that's what I've been focusing on for the last few years, to try and make that work within the affective palette. But like I'm saying now, it's because we have these incredibly technical devices. Can one actually have a connection with affect? And so whose responsibility is it at the end of the day to make this event affective? And how do we do that? And how does the technology lend itself to become more effective than how is it as a machine of amplification? That's basically all we needed to do at the end of the day.
I find it very interesting, because I'm working, I would say, the other way around, not towards more intimate experiences in rooms, and I was just doing an experience in the afternoon with at the Lund University department with students, programmers and engineers, and it was about also relocating the body in the past in other environments. But but not within such a social context, but in a room or with projection and 3D models and including the body into the body of the audience and it's the same. I speak about corporeality in time and space. It's another way to approach the same subject, I would guess.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's about an intensity, definitely. A lot of the social choreographies, however, though, open themselves up to anybody. And one obviously has no control about what's going to be uploaded and how much investigation will screen dance makers understand, dare I say that, or dancers want to investigate this or understand affect, and so there's like a niggling concern as to, you obviously put it out there and what you're going to get back, and it's going to be very interesting to see a sort of psychogeographic responses and what, how will people in London respond as to people, in Sao Paulo, and or Johannesburg, and what vibrations will they even be bothered about? I mean, I don't know. So it's going to be very interesting to see this transmigration of and responses, and see if they still remain affective.
And responses, you mean by text, if they write something about on
the
blog or
corporeal responses. I mean,
yes, corporeal.
They will eventually be standing in their cityscape and then corporeally investigating something, shooting it and uploading it, and we'll have to see. I mean, will it just be dance choreographies, or will it be affective, the body integrated within its environment and interpretation, interiorization of the area that they're in? Don't know.
Any other thoughts or comments?
Yeah, it's just you partly answered by speaking of the green screen problem issue thing, but I was wondering, when you showed us the, I don't know if you can call it a prototype, when the dancers are dancing in the green screen, are they in anyhow connected to the urban space, or is it all you connecting them afterwards to which space you find appropriate for their moves, or how does it work?
Well, this is the problem that we were talking about. Yeah. Is that, I mean, that was a prototype, right? And then, I mean, we said to Neo, you're in a building and you're in a space, and try and remember the space. Yeah, they were not matched at all, and that would always be the problem. And then how many people sort of worldwide have access to a green screen studio? So that for me was just an approach to arrive at some sort of overlaying what we ultimately could possibly foresee with the Affexity end product. But I don't think it's the way to go with green screening. Also because the notion of choreographing something outside, not within the location, doesn't seem to make sense. It's about being present within a certain environment and incorporating that environment and then expressing it. Yeah.
Just following up on that, it has been really fun to see all your prototypes and how they developed from purely video to kind of augmented green screen things, and you feel like at the very least you're starting just watching your videos, having never used argon, you're kind of through your prototypes tracing out, we're starting to get a sense of the technology, the Techne, the kind of limitations, and the kind of it's just interesting to watch and follow you kind of exploring a new medium that's just started, and really working hard as an artist to try to, through affect, this sense of affect, to work it through technology. But you mentioned you've introduced the idea of film to the people in Argonne. Is there any other stuff that you would like to, any kind of interface stuff or things, if you had a chance to influence them, that you'd like to see particularly at the moment for your project?
Well, we have been thinking of what have we been? We've been thinking about. We've been thinking about text. You mean other?
Like a wish list, yeah.
Yeah, like a wish list. Yeah, I mean, we've been thinking about text. We've been thinking about what was it? Animation. Yeah, not only just shooting and capturing a dancing body. So there is that element, and then there's also music we'd like to have. Yeah.
And even on a simple level, there's questions of transparency. So if we're not using the cut-out green screen figure, and we do have a figure who's shot in the city, then there may be a bubble around the figure, the dancer, that is from the original site. So can we then make that a transparent layer over the camera feed? And that would make it look more like Jeannette's screen dance aesthetic, but it would be done through the functionality of Argonne. Because right now the little cutout of the figure where she's dropped on, I mean, you did it really well, you dropped her on the drawbridge, or you dropped her on the base of the drawbridge or the top. That is one aesthetic, but the figure feels quite like she's floating in the space there. So what if she still had her capture space around her, but it was transparent? So a slider, I'd love a slider, an opacity slider, so we could actually play with questions of density, and then the ability to maybe have one image be annotated with another image and annotated with another image, but that might also bring up questions of download speed and how would they play together in geospatial tagging space, which is why we're not going to be premiering anything for another year.
Yeah, and really. Then the other thing with the wish list is to actually geotag them very specifically in very small areas, so that you're actually also challenging the audience not only just to negotiate the space on a very sort of perpendicular level, but actually, there's something geotagged right down here, in this tiny little space, and what happened here previously, what was shot there. So in fact, the audience starts to have an affordance around the area, but as yet. They can't geotag something so specifically to such a small radius. I mean, it's quite broad. So that's another one we'd like to do, actually. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Are there any? Of course.
How about this? How precise you could be with this geotagging, because it's GPS coordinates. So, do you gonna put a mark where the participator should stand on, or could it be a whole group of people doing this exactly at the same time, but spread out and have the same?
I mean, I think in the beginning we were thinking about having marks on the ground where a person would, stand on the mark, and then you would find, and then you would allocate your,
because it could be also like a group experience. If you're
absolutely,
it would be cool.
Yeah. It could be a group experience, or you could at a dedicated time. So you'd all meet, and then you'd walk through the environment and watch the videos, or else you could do it alone. You could be a solo experience at any time as well. So
you've picked up on the question of how it becomes accessible and a performance experience. So how do we work with groups simultaneously or one by one? And I love the idea of a group standing roughly around the same spot, all maybe having slightly different perspective on it with a slightly different download time. And if there's music, the music would all be coming in and out at a different time too. So it would be this real ripple of the experience, and people could look at each other's, and we're hoping to test a lot of this.
Yeah.
Anyone else? If not, I'd like to say thank you again to Jeannette.
Thank you.
And thank you all for coming out on a Monday night.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming. Thank you.
And if you keep an eye on the Medea website and the effexity.org blog, you'll have a sense of our our progress, which in some respects feels slow, but it feels very satisfyingly continuous. You know, it's a process. Yeah,
Definitely is.
thanks a lot.
Great. Thank you.